What's up, everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York, calling from the quarantine zone again, and this time we got Vreth from the almighty Finntroll. Thank you so much for your time today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
Yep, it's so awesome to have you here. The newest album, Vredesvävd, which is scheduled to come out later this year. Do you just want to talk about how the making of this record was, what the thought process was going into the making of this album, and the recording and mixing and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, well, this album, as it's been 7 years since the last one, it's been lots of planning, it's been lots of touring, it's been lots of everything going on lately, and actually we had sort of two really different directions that we went with the album in the beginning, and we couldn't really agree on what kind of album it would be, but years passed by, and we actually last year we decided that we need to have it out in 2020, and we just called up our record label and asked the deadline for an album, and then we actually sort of really, when we got that deadline, we actually really kicked off the album writing. So we threw lots of songs and riffs in the trash, or maybe more like back in the archives, and used some of it and wrote a bunch of new stuff for the album. And in half a year we actually finished the album, the writing for the album, and this year, in the beginning of the year, we went into the studio. It was actually just around the corner when the COVID outbreak started. So we actually,
timing.
Yeah, especially with the touring. But for the studio, it was actually not in the way for the recording itself, because we could actually still go to the studio because we had this. You could go outside here in Finland, and then you could be up till 10 people in the same area, or in the same apartment or something like that. So gatherings of 10 people was okay, so we could actually still record the album. So the recording process this time was really easy because, well, there was nothing else to do actually. Nobody could really go to work or anything, so we could actually really concentrate on writing the new album.
Mm-hmm. Being that it was 7 years since the release of Vredesvävd, did you just consider this conceptually a follow-up to Vredesvävd, or did you think that this was almost kind of like a new beginning for Finntroll in a way?
Well, of course, it's it's still Ventral. I wouldn't say that it's a new entity, but it's not in that way. It's not conceptually, together with Vredesvävd or something. But yeah, no, this one is a totally different entity this time. And I think that the sound actually sort of went back in time a little bit, maybe to end of 90s, beginning of 2000 Ventral.
Okay. So it's kind of has a blast to the past in a way.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, you came into Finntroll in 2007, right? Jordan's Job was your first.
2006.
Yep. So that was your first album. So when you joined Finntroll, were you kind of looking at the earlier work, being this is what I have to do, or did you kind of want to bring a little bit of your own mix into Finntroll?
Well, the band wasn't really familiar to me when I joined. I had actually the first album in my shelf, but I didn't know about the two other albums. So when I joined, I sort of, I just went along with what I knew at that point, and of course, trying to sort of mimic some of the former singers, or try to sort of copy them. That would be just stupid. So I really wanted to have my own sound. I had more death black metal voice in that time, especially more into towards Behemoth or something like that. And I really wanted to bring that in Ventral and up the level of brutality a little bit.
Yeah. Do you think that for this new album, Vredesvävd, do you think that the new songs that you release, Arm Folk and Forsen, do you think this can almost serve as a good representation of what the whole album is going to sound like, or is this just like the beginning?
Well, yeah, this actually has quite a few of the moments that we're actually sort of wanted to show with them. For example, Urmfolk is really one of those songs that actually have sort of all the elements that the album have. Forsen is a little bit slower, so it shows off the more dark territories of this album. But I'd say that there's still, some surprises in there. For example, the opening track, Döda Sten, is gonna be a little bit of a eyebrow raiser.
Mm-hmm. Well, I've always thought that the music for Finntroll was very experimental to begin with, having elements of like folk metal and some black metal and like melodic death metal and stuff like that. So I think it's fair to say that trying new things was always part of what Finntroll is about, right?
Yeah, definitely. It's always been about, to have the bass as a extreme metal band, but then we experiment on top of that and, sort of stretching the boundaries a little bit with, what is considered to be metal. And we've never been, really considering, any kind of genre that we want to go into. It's more that we are like open to inspiration from, everywhere when it comes to music.
Mm-hmm. And does it ever do you ever go into the songwriting process with like a preconceived idea of what you want to do, or does it kind of just happen naturally?
Well, usually it's more of like a trial and error kind of thing, that we write a lot of stuff and it seems like we're missing something in it, and at some point there's a song that we write that actually opens up the whole spectrum. So yeah, this is what we want to do. This is really what we're gonna do with this album. For example, Vredesvävd album, we didn't really have it, the kind of style we wanted to do the songs, but when we made the title track Vredesvävd, it sort of was really clear. You could see the red thread that we wanted to take, throughout the album. And this time it was the same thing. It was just a longer process this time, and we didn't find that red thread until many years later. And on this album, it was that song Döda Sten that actually was sort of the thread finder. I think that's the one that when we made that one, everybody was like, yeah, this is gonna be cool, and this is what we want to have. This is the sound we wanna have on this new album.
Is there ever a time, have you always needed the music to come up with the lyrics, or has there ever been a time where maybe lyrics or a story could help maybe influence the direction of the music itself?
Yeah, definitely. For example, I was talking about the track Vredesvävd before, and that track, for example, is totally made around the lyrics, and that was because Trollhorn, he didn't have any riff or anything, but when Kavla sent in that piece of lyric, he just got all these ideas around it and started to build a song around those lyrics. So yeah, sometimes it goes like that, sometimes it's the other way around as well.
Mm. Have you ever had the best lyrics ever, but then they always go one syllable over everything written?
Yeah, that happens all the time, and then I need to try to find synonyms and stuff, and it doesn't, of course, it doesn't sound as good as that particular word. On the new album, actually I tried, because there was lots of these phrases that were a little bit too long, so then we just super speed up them instead, and da 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 da, some of the phrases over there are almost like rap or something. Hip.
Yeah. Now, going by the character known as Vreth, and everybody going by these aliases in Finntroll, do you almost feel like on the album and when you play live that you're almost in a way portraying a character, or is it still just a direct extension of who you personally are?
Well, of course, it's a part of who I am, but I've always felt like when I stop being Matthias and become Vreth, and put on the stage clothes and everything, that I sort of go into a character, I'd say a darker side of myself or something like that. And also it's liberating in some way to actually to have this character, because Matthias couldn't do whatever he wanted on the stage, because then I would represent myself. But when I represent Vreth, he's got no boundaries. He can do whatever he wants. He's a rock star.
Yeah. Well, I've yet to see Finntroll live, but I hope that changes, once the world regains consciousness. But
Yeah.
I've always thought that, from watching live videos of you, it's not just a rock concert or a metal concert. It really is like an entire performance aspect. I'd imagine, in addition to rehearsing the music, do you almost feel like that for Finntroll you have to rehearse a choreography as well?
Yeah, well, not maybe choreography, but yeah, there's definitely. For me, it's never been about doing stuff. It's just more of letting go for me, and just letting the music take over and do whatever. I feel the music is actually the one that dictates what I'm doing, sort of.
Mm-hmm. Well, and another question I have for you is, being such a prolific artist, as you know, as a lot of people know, you were just on the new And Oceans album, Cosmic World Mother, but you've also played with a lot of other bands such as Festerday and Magenta Harvest and so many other bands. So is it a different mind frame depending on the project you're working with, or is there a usual method behind the madness that applies to everything?
No, these are totally separate entities, and that's also sometimes, for example, now when I went to the studio, the first things I started recording for the new Ventral didn't feel right, because we released in May, we released the new And Oceans album, so I was sort of still in the And Oceans zone with my mindset, and it didn't feel right. It felt, out of place in Ventral. So it usually takes me a while to reset, and sometimes, the first day I'm in the studio, I sort of just quite a lot, because it didn't feel like it was really there yet. So same thing was when I started recording the new And Oceans album. I really was in a sort of Festerday kind of state back then, because I had learned a set of 13 songs with Festerday that was really, really low guttural death metal. So it's a different kind of mindset, and for me it takes a little while to reprogram my brain again and think Finntroll. But luckily I came into it, and at some point, it clicked just like halfway through the first day or something, and then I was like, yeah, this is how it should be, and this is how it should be, and everything falls into the right places.
Mm-hmm. Has there ever been a time, though, where working with another project could allow you to bring in some new stuff into another project, or do you try to keep everything as separate as possible?
Well, of course, I sort of borrow things from my other, and for example, on this new Ventral album, I tried on already on the last Magenta Harvest album a couple of years back. I tried this kind of screaming with sort of it's like a pitched scream, so we actually have a tone in there in the scream as well, and I tried it on the album. It sounded really cool, so then I sort of took that to And Oceans as well, and sort of incorporated even more into some of those melodic parts in that, and then with Ventral album I really wanted to have that same of style, kind of half scream, half clean singing in some parts, so I lent a little bit to Ventral as well. So yeah, I'm taking and choosing, but the mindset is really different from all these different kind of bands.
And I'd imagine that you're also demonstrating a different side of yourself personally as well, right? I mean, it's fair to say you're only Vreth in Ventral, but
yeah.
when we listen to you in And Oceans or Decomposer or any other artists or The Inequity Descent, it's a different side of who you personally are, a side that we won't see elsewhere.
Yeah, exactly. That's definitely it's Ventral is Vreth he's only for Ventral.
Wow, he's not welcome at all, huh? He's not liked amongst the other bands.
Well, he's welcome, but I want to keep him, in a special compartment for this. And the Ventral style is also a little bit different. It's more more for like a theater or something like that. So I don't want to bring that because, for example, in my punk band Bside, I actually sort of represent my own opinions about stuff, and I don't want to mix that into the Finntroll kind of to the Finntroll world.
Well, you mentioned like when you are playing live. By the way, excuse for our listeners, excuse me. It just started thundering outside right now. This is very metal. But when it comes to playing with Finntroll, you mentioned like in your live presence, like when you put on the stage clothes and you're letting out who Vreth really is. But do you almost like are you that way in the studio with Finntroll as well? Like, is it like the same mindset where you like portray yourself as Vreth and you release the same energy into the studio as you do when you're on stage?
Yeah, I actually sort of do because, well, if I would be an actor, I would be this kind of method actor as well. So I also try to bring him forward because I don't want to simulate Vreth in a way. I'm not, it's only when I'm in the song booth, then he comes, he pops out and I put that kind of mindset in my head. He's not, of course, there between takes and when I go, in the studio, in the kitchen to eat something. He's not there then. But when I'm in the song booth, yeah, he definitely comes out, and it actually helps me as well to sort of to sound right for Finntroll to put this kind of mindset on.
Yeah. Well, when you look at every single album you've done, whether it is Vredesvävd or Bside or even like with And Oceans with Cosmic World Mother or any album you've done, do you almost still look at these as a self-portrait in a way? Like, is it a representation of who you are at a particular time?
Yeah, especially, for example, this And Oceans album, it was really personal, all that I wrote for it. And I also... So yeah, I definitely put the how to say like the now in these projects. Okay, Finntroll is a little bit different because the lyrics, they are not set in a certain time or anything. They could have happened thousands of years ago. They could have happened 500 years ago. They could happen 5,000 years in the future. They don't really have a time. It's a totally different world we're talking about here. But for example, Bside, I have this crust punk band that I play bass and sing in, and there, for example, it's really about what's happening right now, and everything I write is really sort of what I experiencing right now. So yeah, they definitely they could be sort of a kind of a diary in that way.
Well, it's really interesting on how you take like inspiration from multiple sources and portray yourself differently depending on the project that you're in. Like, there's artists who are in like multiple bands, like Phil Anselmo being in the 20 different bands that he's in. Like, I've always thought that, whether it was Pantera or Down or Superjoint, it's still really him. Like, he still has the same stage presence and the same sort of attitude. But it almost seems like for you, I remember when I got the new And Oceans album and listened to it, I actually had to do a little research and realize, oh my god, wait, this is the same singer of Finntroll. I didn't even realize that.
Yeah. No, I really always have enjoyed this, that I sort of to disconnect from another one and plug into to the next one, and just to sort of to have this kind of balance in some kind of way. As you said, Phil Anselmo is he's totally the opposite of me, and but yeah, I like to adapt to different kind of roles, and the same thing happens with me when because my life is like that as well. I speak different languages, and I have this certain ways that I go into, and in that part of my life I speak that language, that part I speak that, and that I do. So I sort of like put my life in different folders, and the same goes with my bands.
And if you don't mind me asking, with Finntroll, being that you kind of like, you're portraying a character, and like, is there really any vestige of your personal life invested in Finntroll as well, or do you try to keep, your do you try to keep Matthias away from Finntroll altogether?
Yeah, I try to keep them actually a bit separate. Of course, he's there. For example, now I'm portraying Ventral, and here I am being myself. so yeah, but of course, this is hard to explain. But yeah, Ventral is because Ventral. Always with lyrics, I'm really picky as well. So I need to stand behind, everything I sing. And with me and Ventral not writing the lyrics, it's our first singer Katla that still is writing the lyrics. So I can sort of detach myself from it, but I can detach Matthias from it, and I have attached Vreth to that area instead.
Mm-hmm. Here comes the most difficult question of the whole interview then.
All right.
How do you know when a song is done?
Oh, yeah, that's a hard one. Well, that was also one thing with this album, because we rewrote a lot, and we rewrote that again and again, and sometimes it feels like a song is never ready. And with Finntroll it can be like that. We could sort of quote unquote like sort of make that song even better if we were going, but that would go on for an eternity, Now this time it took 7 years, So a song is probably never ready, but it's. But when it feels like, now it's actually everything has fallen into place, and now actually something that we can be proud of, and and it doesn't feel like it's still that we actually can, we dare to show it to someone.
Yeah. Do you think, being that, did you start writing for Vredesvävd 7 years ago, or because I'd imagine is what we're hearing on this album, is this how it originally was written, or did these songs change a lot over a span of time?
Oh, they definitely have changed. For example, Forsen, the second single we released, is actually one of those really old songs that we actually had. It was one of the first ones that we actually finished, and I think that was 2015 maybe, or maybe 2016, something like that we actually finished. But then when we sort of found the red thread last year in the album, it didn't fit anymore. Then it was so we rewrote that to fit this new album.
Wow. And I'd imagine, aren't you always worried too, a song you leave out or never include could be a B-side one day, just be the biggest hit you guys ever had?
Yeah, definitely. There was a couple of good songs we left out on this one as well, because they just didn't fit.
Oh no! But maybe for the future Ventral album.
There's lots of those songs, because of all the material we wrote during the last years, it's maybe 20% is on that album.
Yeah. Well, what I've always found interesting about B-side albums is if you were a really die-hard fan of the band and you could tell what song was off which album, and you listened to the list of B-sides, you could tell where they were originally supposed to be.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep.
But we have a couple of finished songs that didn't make the cut, so maybe we can release something else, like a 7-inch or something. I don't know. Well, let's see. But we didn't record them though. But yeah. But we have lots of songs that actually are sort of in the vault right now.
Well, we look forward to hearing it. Maybe we'll get a follow-up to... Maybe it won't take 7 years then to make the next Ventral album, right?
Yeah, let's hope for a couple of years less.
Awesome. So before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time today. Really enjoyed this conversation. Just, obviously thanks to a certain virus that shall not be named. Do you obviously, touring isn't in the picture right now, but I'd imagine when all this is over, because live music will eventually come back, we'll be seeing Ventral on the road quite a bit, right?
Yeah, definitely. We actually just 2 days ago we actually announced our first tour now for this album, and it's actually set to March next year. That's gonna happen, of course, in Europe. Start off there, but we have been talking of course about the US and in North America overall to come back, and we went there for the last real tour was in 2013. So yeah, we haven't toured for 7 years all over. We had 7,000 tons of metal a couple of times since, but that has been all. so we're really looking forward to it. And as soon as we get the green light that the borders are open, and we're gonna start working on coming over there.
Yeah, we would definitely love to have you here.
Yeah.
We play you guys at Duff's and Lucky 13 and all the heavy metal bars in New York quite a bit. So.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So thank you so much, everybody. We are here with Vreth of Finntroll. Be sure to pick up Vredesvävd, coming out this September, out on Century Media. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.